Welcome to the Aldridge Foundation World Work Week live panel discussion about the event industry. And we're very, very lucky to have here today Philippa Bowers, who is Managing Director of Fisher Productions, Faye Campbell, who runs Faye Campbell Events and is the founder of it. We have Lee Richards, who is Lee what?
I'm an account manager at Fisher
I was about to say event manager, that's why I got confused. An account manager at Fisher Productions, and I am Naomi Ambrose, who used to work in events and now run the charity, The Talent Tap. So I'm going to run this panel discussion and ask a number of questions, and we'll all chip in and try and give you as much insight as possible into the event industry. So opening up with introductions, can each of you give a brief description of who you are and what you do at present? And Philippa, you're at the top of my screen, so I'll ask you first.
Morning, and thank you. Thanks for having me. As Naomi mentioned, I'm Managing Director of Fisher Productions. Fisher Productions has been going for 37 years nearly now. I have been there for 20 years. Started off producing there as a freelancer, and just grew within the company and built it up to what it is today. Prior to that, how I got into events was actually through banking. I was working temporarily for Morgan Stanley actually, initially, and started doing all their financial roadshows in the UK and Europe. And off the back of that, I sort of then just found myself really enjoying the events world, not so much the financial side of it, but more sort of the experiential side, which is what we do now, really. So that's where we are. Do you want me to go further back than that?
Do you know what? We'll go further back, and I could amalgamate two questions into one. So if you could give me an introduction of your career, how you got into it, and how you went through, that'd be great.
So school-wise, I actually didn't go. I went to college, I went traveling. I didn't go to university in the end, actually. I decided that actually the world I wanted to do was just sort of travel the world, and I ended up getting a number of different jobs in London. Just really, I had no idea what I wanted to do as a teenager, even in my 20s, in fact. I suddenly thought I'm just going to try lots of different things. Found the events world, and as I mentioned, got into the sort of banking side of things. Really enjoyed it, hard work, met some amazing people, met some really incredible people. And I think once you sort of get that scope of the financial, the Europe, the work and events that you can do out there, very different to what I do now. And now within Fisher, we do all sorts of different things, and we do still do very much majority corporate work. I'd say probably 95% of it is corporate work, and actually, a small number of private events. But our key thing is we were just talking about earlier, is all about the live experience. It's all about attending an event. As you can imagine, the coronavirus has done us no favors here, but it's walking into a space and having that environment of smelling, touching, feeling, looking, and actually being with people. And that's really what we focus our world on, and I think the events world is so massive. I mean, Faye, be able to add to that, but there's such thing as live events, there's experiential events, there's festivals, there's exhibitions, there's financial roadshows. It's enormous. So I think that's a really good sort of area that we can discuss with you guys today to sort of enhance on the areas of the vast area that the industry is.
Okay, and what about you, Lee? How did you get into the industry? What's your kind of background, and how did you get to where you are today?
Sure. So I've always been interested in creative things. I studied business, media and music at A-level. I then went on to study international event management at the University of which was really nice, and then that included a placement year, and got my feelers out for really wanting to be.
Lee, what university did you go to? You froze. What university?
University of Brighton.
Okay.
And so then from University of Brighton, my first role was working as an exhibition assistant at IBC, which is the International Broadcasting Convention. So that was a really great feel for working in exhibitions. I then moved on to be the fair manager at Affordable Art Fair for 3 years, which was a really cool role, working in contemporary art, and also running their exhibitions. And then now I'm at Fisher, so I've been with Fisher since March, and I love working there. Obviously, it's a creative production company, and so every day is different. We work on a range of events, and so that's where I am now. I've been with the company since March last year.
Cool. And Faye, what about you?
Yes, so I have been working in the events industry for about 18 years. I now run my own company, so just me on my own, a very small business, and I work a lot with freelancers. And I've been running that for 6 years. So at the moment, my main client base, I'd say it's sort of 50-50. So I work with corporate clients, a lot of hotels. I work with the Cadogan estate and do a light switch on in Chelsea and lots of sort of outdoor events. And I also work with some private clients, so whether they want to have birthdays, weddings, parties, again, lots of garden parties. But I started my career, I studied journalism at university, was convinced I wanted to be a journalist. When I finished university, I was doing some work experience at a publishing house called EMAP, which has since changed its name to Bauer. And I was doing some work experience at a magazine called Just 17. So kind of, events is all about making contacts. So sort of through making contacts within that company, I was offered a project coordinator role within the event department. And I didn't even know events was an option at the time. And I absolutely loved it. I worked on an event called the Smash Hits Pole Winners Party, which was a big award ceremony for teenagers, lots of boy bands. I thought it was amazing. And then, so that's kind of where my love of events came from. And then I worked in a couple of different agencies, so to kind of open up my experience. I did quite a lot of stuff at festivals and worked a lot with alcohol brands. I then went back client side for a fashion trend forecaster and used to look after their sponsorship for Fashion Week and award ceremonies. I then finished my full-time roles with other companies, working back at Bauer, where I came back as the role as managing the whole department, which was sort of go back 360, working on award ceremonies like Q Awards, Kerrang Awards, Empire Awards, lots of different activations. And I decided to set up on my own and be brave. And that's
cool. And then here you are today. I don't work in the event industry anymore, but I did do for 20 years. And my background was that I left school, and the first event that I ever produced was the Leavers Party for school, which I absolutely loved, dressing everything and making it all cool and beautiful and making themes. I went to university and studied art history. And after university, like so many people, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I like communicating and I like being creative. And so I actually got into the PR industry, and I worked in PR. And one of the things we did was launch David Beckham for police sunglasses. And we organised an event at a place called Delphina, which I don't know, I think it still exists, which is in Bermondsey. And I loved running the event and working with the event company that produced the event. And I then went traveling, and when I came back from traveling, I saw an advert for that event company, and because they knew me and because I'd worked in a PR company before, they employed me to work with them. And I think at the beginning I was freelancing for them, and it was tough times, and I ended up working in the video production arm and stacking millions of shelves full of videotapes and things to keep my job. And then, and it moved on, and I worked for them for a number of years, called MCM Creative, and they still exist today. And I worked in corporate events and messaging, really. So we organised big conferences, but it was all about the ideas and the messages in the conferences. And then about 10 years ago, I joined Philippa's team at Fisher Productions and was there a long time and loved it, working up to being an event director there. On with many clients, including M&S and John Lewis, to name a couple. And then I unfortunately had to leave because my family moved. But it's been great experience. Is there a best recommended route into the industry? We've all talked about different things. Some of us went to university, obviously some of us didn't. Do you need to go to university to be an event? Harriet, you start. Do you think that there is a best recommended route into the industry, or anything you did an event management degree, didn't you? So what do you think?
Sorry, so you mentioned
Harriet.
Not Harriet.
I see Harriet there.
Yeah, I mean, I studied at university because I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. And I think with events, it's so creative, it's fast paced, and the degree itself had a real mix of law, marketing, destination management, event management. And so I thought it's a perfect course to kind of inspire me, get creative, identify what I like about the events industry and what I want to do. And I think it was a perfect course for me, but I don't think that you need to have a degree to get into the events world. I mean, prior to this, I was very proactive in getting internships and work experience, contacting event companies. I worked at Warner Music, Universal Music in their events teams. That was, a lot more insightful than the course in terms of practical work on site at events. But I did think it's good for discipline, it's good for networking, it's good for kind of understanding the different avenues of events. But I don't think that you need to have a degree. I think you can kind of get through by work experience alone, or doing a shorter course.
And I think probably, Philippa, would you agree with that? I mean, I know you obviously hire a lot of people at Fisher, and I don't know whether you look at degrees really when you do that.
Not necessarily, to be honest. I mean, we also do, for the last few years, we've taken internships. So, and I think the last two, Leo was from Leeds, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, I believe, yeah.
So he was lovely. I mean, really lovely. And basically it's their sandwich course. So they come for a year with us, and we give them the opportunity to really just sort of work around the divisions of the business, just so they really get a better understanding of everything. And then towards the end, they're sort of, act as a sort of a runner to the events manager, just help as a PA on all the events, pre, during and post. So it really gives them a wide range of stuff. And I think it's interesting because I always want to talk to them. We talk, they, obviously when they join, and then have a discussion before they go. Generally they've really loved it, and I think from them it's almost like, God, it's so different to what we learn. There are elements of what we learn, but it's not until you're on the ground, and it isn't. It's like anything in life, it's not until you're on the ground doing the stuff that you really get to grips with what it's all about. So in answer to your question, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, obviously every little bit helps, but that's not the forte that I would actually employ someone. It wouldn't be the decision maker for me.
Mm-hmm. And Faye, what do you think? Because I know there's a story of a girl that used to work with us as well, Olivia, who left school and just found an opening at Fisher Productions, which was on reception. And again, that was another route that she got in. And I think that for a lot of students coming up, the event industry is a very difficult industry to get into. And sometimes it's a good idea, do you think, to just find a job within the industry and then work really hard in whatever job that is to get noticed? Do you think that would be a good way, Faye?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think I kind of agree with what everyone else has said. I don't think you don't necessarily have to go to university. I think personally, me going to university, I loved it, and I got so many sort of skills and experience from that, and I wouldn't change that for the world. But until I started in events, again, no idea. And I think that experience I think if you're going to university, you definitely need to get a mix of experience and study, because it is all about who you know and showing how keen you are and showing what a hard worker you are. And yeah, so I think you can start in any, like you said, you can start as a receptionist. You could, in any sort of area of a business, really, just to kind of, to be seen. I mean, I did work experience at a company in journalism, and it was just by making those contacts that I was recommended to the events department. So yeah.
I think also what we look for in people when we're hiring them, and if they're coming out of university or is some kind of experience, even if you haven't worked in an actual event company, it could be that you've organized a party somewhere for a youth group, or I remember when I was at university, I organized the fashion show for the university rag, or people are looking for things you've done and thinking out of the box as well, just getting involved and talk about any experience that shows you've got good organizational tendencies. I think is really important. Yeah.
I think what's also important with that, because I think one of the things that I've done when I've done similar sort of panels to this, and more often to students or people wanting to get into the industry, what's important is there are so many different roles. There are so many different roles that you don't, even, I mean, organization skills obviously comes as a plus point for anybody doing any job really. But when I look at the mix that we've got at Fisher, we have got a design team, we've got an account team, we've got a technical services team, and they are all very, very different skill sets. They're all very different personalities, but actually when you have the right skills, putting together a team of people, organizing something for a client, that's the key thing. So it's not one person doing the whole lot. It's actually bringing in the other elements into the team to be able to produce something.
Actually, should we talk about that and the different areas within the event industry? Because we all know it so well, but obviously Fisher itself is an event production company, and Faye works in event management, event production, but there are lots of different areas within the industry. Lee, do you want to talk about some of those different?
Sure, yeah. So I really think it's an important point to do your research before you start into this industry, because for me in particular, it was as I was evolving and progressing in different roles that I realized the scope of the event industry and the various roles. And so with my degree, they put us in touch with a few companies that we could look into. But my experience predominantly has been with in-house events. So Affordable Art Fair is a company that runs their own exhibitions. IBC is a company that runs their own exhibitions. I work for BCR Publishing, a finance company. They run their own events. So you're kind of working on their own campaigns and their own brands and their own goals. Whereas working at Fisher, every day is different because you've got different brands coming in who've got their own perceptions and own things to showcase within their event. And so it's really important to kind of look at the different roles before you start into the industry. Have a look at companies, go and have a look at organizations, think about the events that you go to that you like, and just kind of broaden your horizons in terms of scope before you kind of get going, because as you mentioned, it's hard to get into, and once you're in one position you kind of progress that way. It's kind of hard to go into different roles. So yeah, I would always just kind of say do your research from the beginning.
So we've got what we're talking about now is, if you're talking about event management, event production, that's actually physically putting on the event, and you can do that obviously in-house in a company, or like a publishing house, or you can do it as an agency. But I suppose also not only is there other roles, like for logistics, for example, you can have event logistics companies. Do you want to explain a bit more about them, Faye?
Yeah, I was just sort of having a little think about all that. There is so many roles. So kind of, as you said, Naomi, I would be an event manager, so I would kind of oversee the whole project. But I could work with a production company direct or logistics, as you said, that could provide light, sound, AV, set build, and they would help. I would kind of come up with a vision, and they would work with me to see what was feasible and help create that. So and within that you get project managers, production assistants, lighting techs, sound techs. There are so many different roles within that. Technical, hands-on kind of roles. And
I think that sometimes people often think that big event businesses happen in the cities, but every hotel around the country will have an event team within that, and that might be people who are selling spaces in the hotel, and then selling a wedding, but then they might get involved with organizing of a wedding as well. So you don't have to be going to the big cities. You can look at your local hotels and see what opportunities they have there to get work experience, even catering experience at a wedding. All of these things are very helpful to get you to understand more about kind of what goes on in an industry.
Yeah, and I especially think with everything that's been going on at the moment, obviously outdoor events are going to be the first thing to come back, so looking at outside London, venues, private houses, lots of big space outside, they're going to be the places that are doing events first. So like you said, caterers, tent companies, lighting, all those kind of people. You can get lots of experience working with them, not just event companies.
Yeah, such a big industry. So Philippa, now obviously you're a managing director, so this is a bit different, so you might know, but what is your favourite and least favourite part of your role? At the moment.
Start? I know. Do you know what it is weird, because I think with this pandemic that's happening, it actually just gives you time to reflect and really look. I mean, as Lee said, as Faye does, I mean, as you know, Naomi, no day in our industry is ever the same. And actually, to be honest with you, I think that's why I love it. There's nothing mundane. I mean, yes, of course, you're going to get frustrations. Yes, you're going to, there's going to be difficulties. But actually, when you're working collaboratively as a team, when you've got a brilliant team on board, and, every day you wake up. I mean, I always remember when I joined, and I remember Charlie Fisher, who set up Fisher, and he said, the day you don't want to walk into the office or you've had enough, that's the day you're done. And I still haven't had that day. And I kind of think it's sort of, I mean, okay, all the entertainers may have come around 10 years later or whatever it may be, you're seeing the same thing, but it is just having every day being different, every event being a little bit more challenging, new technology coming out and really bringing that and marrying it up to whatever we're doing. So there's so much that you can do. So I love our team. I think we've got a fantastic team, love working with freelancers. So it's really the people around us, but I think it's just the industry. I really love it. And I, of course, love it when we're doing, one of the other things is when you're doing a pitch that's been really challenging, and, and everyone's put in 110%. And when you win that, it's really special, really, really special. I think the things I don't like is when I don't win it. In all honesty, that's my biggest frustration, especially when it's, as we all know, I mean, corporates, everyone's obviously set to a budget, but, people want everything for nothing. And I think it's frustrating when you kind of go, you obviously know that you can do this, we know we can do it, but actually when there's budget restrictions, I mean, that's just, it's like pulling teeth, and that's really the frustration. But we're really lucky with, I think, usually in a sort of go, what do you hate most? And you kind of go, the challenge of sometimes something, nothing ever runs smoothly. There's always going to be hiccups, whether you're doing events, whether it's pre-production, whatever it is. But actually, it's actually bringing in the team and kind of going, right, how can we sort this out? How can we fix this? And I think everyone loves that, because it's sorting out a problem. And that's where people and clients really lean on us, as they do you, Faye, because there's that trust factor. You are putting your absolute all into these people and going, right, you've got to make me look really good. I want a promotion off the back of being the event manager in the corporate society, or whatever it may be. And we've got to do that. We've got to actually, we're putting on something that actually they're spending a lot of money on doing. We've got to make it good. The feedback of those clients attending that has got to be absolutely superb. So that means we're doing our job. And that's what I get great joy out of, was when they come back as well.
And what about Lee, what do you think is, your favourite bit? I mean, team is amazing. But are there any other things you can put your finger on, or your worst bit of the industry?
Well, to be honest, the same for the best part is, as Philippa, I just don't get bored. Every day is different. You're working on new challenges, new events. There's always some problem to be solved. If you're working with a new brand that you haven't worked with before, it's really exciting. Again, you're working on pitches. So I don't ever get bored working in this industry. I would say the least favourite part, which we're all used to, is the unsociable hours. I think it's something that everybody has to be prepared for. Even if you've got long shifts, which is fine, sometimes you don't switch off. If you've got a big event coming up, or if you've got multiple jobs that you're working on, you need to have full attention at all times, working with different suppliers, different members of the teams. Floor plans could be changing. There's always things happening. And so sometimes over the years it's been, having to move a holiday for events that popped up, which you just have to be prepared for. So I think I wouldn't say it's the least part, but it's something to consider coming into the industry. Just be prepared to go in and prepared to put in those hours.
What about you, Faye?
I mean, same as Philippa and Lee, but I think for me as well, sort of when an event can take months. It can take at least 3 months. It can take a year. So it becomes like your baby. So once you sort of get onto site and you see all that work come together, and you're like, oh, it looks like the visuals. Oh my God! And you see everyone having a brilliant time, don't you? Or your client really happy, or the guest. I mean, that buzz of it makes all that hard work worthwhile. Like it really does, and it doesn't matter how hard you've worked, or if a client cut the budget 2 days before, which can happen. Challenging. It is just seeing a successful event. And I guess again, we've all got the same opinion on things we like and don't like. I think it's just a sign of our industry. But it's not events aren't glamorous. I think a lot of people, I mean, I've had people come and do work experience for me, and they think, we're going to be on site and we're going to be all dressed up. We're not the guests, so we're not really supposed to be seen. So and it is very long hours, and it does take over your life. So you have to be really passionate about it. I think that's probably my best bits and worst bits.
I think I'd say with you, my best bit is when it all comes together, when you've done the pitch and you've done the visuals, and then you're standing there and something happens, like a big fashion show, and they come out and you say, God, that's just what I imagined, and that's what happened. Feeling. And then the worst bit is 5 minutes before it goes live, the screen stops and you can't make it work, and everybody's about to come in, and you're like, and the panic of trying to make it work again. But then when it does work, it makes it even better, I think.
I think it's an industry for adrenaline junkies, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to,
totally.
That's the way to put it.
I think that's, and somebody asked here, what are the character traits of people working in the events industry? I'll say one, then I'll hand it over to everyone else. But being able to be calm under pressure, and to be like that swan when you're you're looking calm to your clients, because they don't want to be worried, and something's going on behind the scenes. But as long as you have confidence in yourself to be able to deliver it. What else do you think? What are character traits, do you think, for people working in the event industry?
I think I would also say, don't, I think clients often, coming back to Faye's point, is kind of going, when you are an event manager and you're looking after the whole project, and the client comes to you, there's one thing, one skill you've got to do is, as Naomi, I'm sort of marrying it all up here, is you've got to be able to look after that client. That client's got the trust. You are that one point of call. But if you don't know the answer to a question that they sort of go to, you've got to use the people around you, because they are the expertise. They are the people, the technology, they've got the technology or whatever it is around them to be able to help you pull it off. That's to me, is use the really good people around you.
Yeah. And what do you think, Lee? Any other kind of character traits that sum up somebody who can work in the event industry? Bearing in mind, it's a very wide industry with lots of different things.
Yeah, I think just to add to that would be just be forward thinking. If a client is working with ourselves, it's because that they want that assurance that we've going to resolve everything, and to execute an event, there's so many different elements, so many different parts that come together. And so whether you're in the planning process or whether you're on site, that forward thinking approach of just making sure that, okay, we've got that coming in, making sure the timeline's up to date, making sure that suppliers know what they're bringing in, all the little things, just kind of having that forward thinking approach, and so that when everything does come together, it's because you've kind of acted quickly and efficiently in regards to all the elements that come together.
Cool. Well, I'm just going to hold us now, because obviously we're 4 people as well that do know the industry very well. And I think we might need to go back to basics a bit. Sophia has asked, can you explain the different roles available in the event industry? Perhaps we could look at it as in, like, let's look at an event from start to finish. So when a brief comes in to somebody, so when we deliver an event, and let's track that and what roles of people are required along the journey. So Faye, do you want to start with that? You started.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
From the pitch. So at the beginning, a client or a PR company or some other kind of agency would come to us with a brief. And first off, it would be about creating a proposal. So kind of looking at the brief, looking at their objectives, coming up with the event, how it's going to look, all the ideas. So that would be me. I then bring in other people such as set designers, CAD designers, people to help sort of make the presentation beautiful. And then I would then go to different suppliers within the industry based on the event. So, it could be caterers, lights, sound, entertainment. Send them a brief based on the concept you've come up with to come back with a budget. And I think one of the sort of the points to mention as well is in sort of one of the skills, sort of going back a little bit, is budget management. That is 60% of my job, is to make sure that you might use an Excel sheet. A lot of people do it online now, but I think that's, so finance is a really key skill. So I don't know if you want me to go on, or I'll hand the baton.
You've got your brief, and you've come up with the idea, and you've gone out to all these different suppliers that are still within our industry, be they set builders or sound and lighting or AV people, or a venue that you have to maybe hire, or a space or something like that. So now you've won the event. So the event comes in. So Philippa, the event's landed on your desk. What would your team consist of?
I think subject to whatever. I mean, we're talking big. I would be looking at. I'm going to go roles here. Obviously, design, 2D, 3D design, production manager who looks after very much sort of sometimes shares the budget management as well, but looks after a lot of the suppliers in order to make sure that they're on track. Works alongside the designers as well to make sure the layout, everything else. When you think of I'm going to give you snippets of the role. So things like cable runs in a hotel, for example. The production manager will work with the power guys to make sure that cable runs are all beautifully done, health and safety is all met. You've got a health and safety officer. You've got a producer who works very closely with the production manager, and those two roles very much generally manage the client or look after the project. You then would have production assistant who would act looking at suppliers, props, any other sort of things that might be required for the event. You will have then logistics as well. So you've got to look at all the trucking, picking up the props, dropping them off, all the trucking and schedule dropping off at the venue, whichever venue they are. So, sometimes there's only one drop-off point. So you would have to sort of say, right, you guys are all scheduled half an hour, whatever slots there are. You've also got to speak to the crewing company, which is a lot of the guys that we use, we call them humpers. So they really do. I mean, they're actually really important when you get to the site stuff, because it's actually, they are helping ship or just take all the equipment into the venue. Some of them have technical knowledge, some of them have staging knowledge. Obviously then we have a staging build manager, technical manager, lighting designer, sound designer. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but these guys, and I think what's really important, and we've always sort of done at Fisher, and is production meetings. So production meetings, the key, what we call HODs really. So you would have the sound designer, lighting designer, producer, production manager, PA, just generally there. Those are the guys who would very much manage and run the whole thing. So they would have very, very detailed production meetings about access. I mean, there's some venues that we have an hour to get in, and you've got to get caterers in with that as well. So, and that's a different supplier. It's a very, very different supplier that sometimes may come under our wing or not. So again, they've got a whole list of roles within that industry that are, again, within the events industry, but on the catering side. So we work very well. We work very closely with them in access and timings. But not only that, and I think you've got you've got getting in, you've got the actual event itself, but you mustn't forget there's also the out. You're dealing with the event manager on site, who's also looking at from their sort of side. You know, it could be a palace, it could be a museum. You've got to be really, really careful of how anything's installed. And health and safety is obviously key to all of that. I don't know if have I missed anyone, Lee? I mean, it's sort of endless, isn't it? I mean, there are so many roles.
Yeah, currently.
I know. I just thought of show caller.
Well, yes. Then, so yes, you've got stage manager and show caller.
Yeah.
And obviously those guys are key. Rehearsals key. The show caller very much runs the whole show on the night. So rehearsals prior to that is really, really key. And actually, sort of looking at those jobs, I think what's important to say as well is free. I know you use them, and we use a lot. And we've got 25 permanent staff at Fisher, but freelancers. I mean, you know, I remember actually one girl, she wanted to move from being a production assistant to a producer, and I was going, "Why? You're such a good PA." And it's not. It's as important role as a producer, and she felt that it was like a step up, and I'm like, no, it's not a step up. You know, there's freelancing roles that people do. Production assistants as freelancers, and I think the freelancing world is so huge and really, really busy, and actually really interconnected, that you can get so many jobs with the same teams of people. So for those people who want to, you know, tap into having a variation, that's the other way of going into it.
I think that when you've been talking about these events, you've been talking events, just so everybody understands, that are more like, say, a gala dinner or a party or a conference or a press show. So these are things that often happen within a venue that we design, we deliver them within a venue, and then we get out of a venue, and these are the kind of roles that are there. And I think sometimes I equate it a bit to a theatre, and that you could have a producer and a director of a play. So the producer's the guy or the person, the woman, man, that would look after the budget, make sure that we've got everybody on site, make sure that, you know, you're, if you've got somebody, the end client, you're looking after them. And then the director's the person that's more looking at the creativity and what's actually happening in the play itself. And you kind of marry these two things together in an event. And I think the only other people I think we might are people that would be inviting guests to the events and organising all the guest logistics and management, which is a kind of another role. At Fisher, you guys more organise the live event, but there's obviously another team of people that will get guests there and organise all the logistics. Yeah. Which probably you did more of when. Sorry,
can I? Sorry, I just wanted to add to that as well. I agree with the theatre point, but also it's like renovating a house in one day. So there are, you know, like you're decorating it, you're putting the electrics in, you know, so that kind of technical role. And I think we didn't mention sort of health and safety, especially with COVID now, is going to be even more important. But, you know, coming in as a sort of health and safety person is vital to events. And obviously with some venues and outdoor events, you have to have a risk assessment and things like that. So that's a kind of another area you could get into.
So Andy Harris has said, what advice would you give for preparing for and giving a confident interview? Wow. Lee, what advice would you give for preparing for a confident interview?
Oh, that's a good one. I think it's just being yourself. The events industry is all about people, and we work with people day to day. And so it's important to show your true personality, show your enthusiasm, because again, as you can see, we're all talking about drive, self-motivation. So kind of talk about your key characteristics that you feel can shine through. I think just do your research before an interview, research the company, research the people. You know, you've got so many tools out there, LinkedIn, you've got the company website, you can see articles about maybe events that they've produced. And so if you've done your research, then you're prepared, and just kind of push through your key skills: organization, time management, communication, be professional, be on time. And if you kind of, you know, put those things together, you should be fine.
Yeah.
Do well.
Can you guys add to that at all? I thought that was a great answer.
I think obviously within our industry, I mean, you might be going into it with no experience at all. So it's just kind of looking at your life and looking at how you can kind of make some things relevant. So you might organise, you know, parties for your friends, or you might have done something at the student union. So sort of giving examples of where you've organised things in your own life to kind of show those skills. It doesn't have to. You don't actually have to worked at an event company to do that. We organise things every day in our own lives, don't we?
And Ben's actually asked that. He said, I haven't had any work experience, so what can I put on my CV? Ben, is that no work experience at all? I mean, as in like a weekend job or something, or but Philippa, if as Faye said, what do you think if you've had no work experience? What kind of work experience could you get akin to events at this present time? Or
do you know what, it's always a catch-22. It's, you know, you're trying to get work and you need work experience, etc. And I just think I'm going to go with both Lee and Faye. I think, you know, it's if you've got to have the hunger, you can't be a clock watcher. And you've got to be yourself. I think it's really, really important that you know, the people that we work with everyone's passionate about what they do. And I think if you've got that passion, and I think talk to people in the industry, just almost call them up, just see if you can have a 5-minute chat with anyone. I mean, I often get emails sort of saying, can I have a quick chat? Or people might pop in, or it might be friends of a friend's daughter or whatever who might want to come in and see me. But it's just, you know, and as Lee said, do the research on a lot of these things, because we're a very open and honest industry, and there's some fantastic people in it, you know, and actually it doesn't matter if you haven't got the experience. You know, there's an opportunity for you to work. I mean, you could work on reception, you can work from anywhere. You could work as a runner, anything. It's just having that hunger and that honesty and that real love for giving it a go. I think that's what people really look out for, is, you know, and the hours can be tricky, so that's worth bearing in mind. If you're a clock watcher, it's definitely not the industry for you.
If the industry is quietened down and isn't hiring due to the impact of coronavirus, what other roles could you go into now to develop skills that could be transferred to being an events manager in the future?
Good question. I think, as we were talking earlier, there's always the virtual world. There's also, I mean, from a design point of view, there's always the 2D. There's all sorts of things that our designers are working on. There's fantastic visual models that you could do, not only sort of presentations, but actually you could go down the lengths of doing some sort of product launch or whatever. If you wanted to do something virtual, it's creating a real, a pretty cool show. I mean, one of the things that we were talking about was, if people couldn't do a product launch live, how do we take it to them? So if they could do something like a Zoom call, I'm bringing in difference of roles here. You've still got someone organizing it. You would work with a catering company. The catering company could maybe kind of do little picnic boxes that they could take to all the clients. You're bringing in a bit more of the experience, but more in a virtual world. So caterers will still be busy. You as a producer would still be looking and working with the company to work on the design. And then you've got the design creative team trying to pull something together. And then you might have a speaker on that. Then you've got to manage the speaker. You've got a budget. So still little elements with the live events that could still come in it. But I mean, everyone's doing Zoom calls or virtual stuff at the moment. So there is a world out there for that, certainly, and I think that there will be. It's cost effective, and when we're doing conferences or something like that, we do. You've got to have the live feeds available. So there's definitely a sort of an online virtual element to events that I think is going to be growing bigger and bigger and bigger.
I'd also like to add as well, sort of at the moment, if you think that some hotels are reopening, so I don't know if there could be opportunities to do work with them, because then you get to see sort of catering, housekeeping, all different areas of organisation, and a lot of hotels are doing glamping. People are going to be going holiday in the UK, so there's got to be opportunities this summer for maybe some work experience at hotels and outdoor places.
I think the film industry will be coming through as well, and TV industry and the likes of Netflix and Amazon Prime and things. And I think there are a lot of transferable skills between the TV and film industry and the event industry. So if you're looking at trying to get a runner role, and in the film industry, that will get you into being into like a sub producer or a bass PA, and these are incredibly transferable skills. So if an industry such as that comes together, that could be an opportunity. And as you said earlier, Faye, the outdoor events as well will hopefully be coming up and about. And there must be a lot of logistics roles in relation to how management.
A few people are doing, drive-ins. So there's a lot. There's one near me. So there could be opportunities for work experience. I know someone that is a producer but is checking people in. So you can see everything. So the full production, lights, there's DJs there, there's bars. I'd say that was quite interesting to go on site and see how they were running those.
Sophia asks, how do you go about getting work experience or an internship? Let's say out with the coronavirus. Is there a lot of competition for these? Lee, what do you think about that?
So for me, I haven't done work experience in over 10 years. I graduated in 2012, but before then I did 3 internships, and that was purely just being proactive. They weren't advertising, but I had a look at companies that I wanted to work for, had a look at the events that they were doing. I'm really interested in music, and so I contacted a couple of record labels. Sometimes they'll maybe give you a call, like as Philippa mentioned, lots of people might contact for a call just in the discussion. And other times they might be able to offer you an internship or work experience. And back then, the ones that I did were unpaid. I'm sure there's lots of rules now which you just need to look into. But again, be proactive, look at these, scope out the companies that you would like to work for, look at the events that they do. do your research, and have questions to ask as well, and prepare a nice cover note, a nice email, get somebody to look over it and just check it looks okay, and then start reaching out to people. Don't bombard, don't ambush, but send a polite email, and follow-up call. I think that's all appropriate, that's fine. And then start making a list of who you're contacting as well, and yeah, I guess be proactive.
Yeah. I'd just like to add to that as well. I mean, sort of I get quite a few emails and things like that through social media, but I think making it personal, because I know obviously you do a set sort of letter when you're trying to get lots of internships, but showing that you've actually taken an interest in that company, pick something out, that kind of makes you stand out instead of just a standard, I'm looking for an internship. Sort of say, why do you want to work with that company? Because that would sort of get my attention.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Philippa?
No, I think that's right. I mean, I think, often it's very noticeable when you have a standard sort of email or letter that goes out. Often I've been sent an email with a wrong name or something like that at the top, and I'm like, God, just be really vigilant, just be really, really careful in what you're doing. I think it's really important to have that personal approach. The industry is very, very personable, and I think it's research is key, as Lee said, and actually sort of really being sort of specific about, having a look at the work that they've done, and actually having just your own self-interest. What interests you about that particular event, and be interested, because I think that for me is much more engaging and just gives me a little bit, my gosh, this person really is really interested, rather than feeling like you've got the standard questions. Just really get to the bottom, really delve deep. I think that's the key thing.
There's a question here, and I'm going to send it to Philippa first, and then we can go around. How has the event industry changed in the past 5 years, and what do you predict will happen in the next 5 to 10?
Let me get my crystal ball out. Do you know what? It's 5 years. I think with the industry, I think it's weird. I think it just goes on. It's sort of like 3-year peaks and troughs. There'll be industries, whether corporate or privates, there'll be trends, and they sort of go, one will get off the back of the other. Whether it's the retail, whether it's fashion, they'll all sort of go, oh, let's do that, or let's do that. I mean, just to give you an example, as Naomi knows, when we started doing retail, we used to do Christmas in July product launches, when all the retail companies were launching their Christmas products for sort of a September magazine issue ready for Christmas. And we used to do a lot of the retailers in July. We started off doing 1, the next year it was 2, the next year it was 4, 5, whatever it was. And then suddenly everyone was doing them, and it was like, oh, that drops off, that the trends finish. Going to fashion, going to Fashion Week, for example, London Fashion Week, same sort of thing. Everyone was doing fashion shows. Louis Vuitton obviously then put money into it. They turned it round and they did an exhibition. So they actually allowed the public to understand what it's about. So it's really about trends, I think. And I think it's looking about what the audience really wants, and that's what's really important. I think going over and above the unusual, and I think I go back to the point of going, what's out there? Virtual reality, brand new, it's brilliant, people love it. There's going to be something bigger and better in a year's time. So it's always changing. I think it's keeping a really good eye on technology, all the trends that are happening, the virtual stuff that's happening, the opportunities, and that goes with sort of venues and stuff like that as well. Future, $1 million question. I have no idea. I mean, I think I've had clients calling me sort of asking about, can I do my event? And we had all our events from May until August, all cancelled or postponed to next year. It's been catastrophic to our industry. There's no doubt about it. People have been picking up on the virtual side, but it has been absolutely damaging. There's been thousands of redundancies. I mean, it's a really sad time. However, to put a twist of hope on it, I really, really strongly believe when I sort of look at this and I'm speaking to clients, people, I think next year, whether it's corporates, whether it's privates, whether it's weddings, I think people have really missed that contact this year. And I think they're really going to push the boat out next year. I hope so. And I think it's going to kick off next year, about May, June, I hope. And I think after that, I think when people have budgets put aside. So when they haven't spent these budgets, I really hope that's the opportunity for people to go, come on, let's go again. And let's get this industry up and running again and do bigger and better stuff. Because I think people have really missed it this year.
Yeah. Can you add to that, Faye? I think, I mean, that's a pretty...
you summarised it beautifully, Philippa. But I think also to add, and I mean, I think maybe it's been longer than 5 years, but social media obviously is something. I mean, it's now more important to have influencers at your event than a celebrity, and how many followers, kind of Insta live, broadcasting it live. It's, I think social media is really, really important. I mean, it's the only thing that I use to promote my work, and all the clients I do when it's a brand just want to have influencers there. So I think that's probably really important. And the sort of sustainable events, I mean, it's kind of become less so since we've been in this pandemic. People are throwing lots of litter away, but it's very annoying. But yeah, sort of having, making sure you're recycling and trying not to use plastic, and that sort of carbon footprint. I think a lot of clients want to see that. And as for the future, I just completely agree with Philippa. I think next year, if we're allowed, it will be, I mean, insane. Everyone wants to celebrate. There'll always be events because it's important. It's natural for us to celebrate and be together. It's human nature.
Yes, human nature. Yeah. And so, Lee, what can students do at home right now to gain experience or build skills or educate themselves further about the industry?
I'm sure. So there's loads of books, and going back to being sustainable, you can go to Amazon, go to eBay and get a second-hand book in event management. I'm sure there's lots of people that have studied and are reselling their books. That's really insightful way. YouTube has got some great tips. Lots of event companies, big stadium tours, big venues, small companies as well, small to medium size, have demonstrated from the beginning to conception to execution of an event. So that's quite interesting. You can watch a video on how events put together and the various roles involved. And I think, again, just research different companies that are doing events, think about the events that you like to go to, have a look at the different aspects of running an event, from signage to, and one thing I wanted to mention earlier, actually, because we always talk about putting on an event, but it's so important, and our roles are really key to adding value. When they come to an event production company or an event management company, such as Faye's, they're looking for us to be able to contribute ideas and think big, within budget, obviously. But it's a whole. I'm losing my words now, but putting on an event is so big, but it's adding value. It's coming up with creative ways, coming up with cool ideas. Watch performances, watch videos, watch different types of events and see how things are put together. Look at the sound, look at the set design, have a think about how backstage works. Sorry, I'm talking really broadly now, but again, it's using online, using social media. Go on LinkedIn, type in event companies and have a look, go onto their pages and see what they do, and just be inspired and start making notes down, so that when you do start reaching out and when jobs do start picking up, then you are more prepared.
Yeah. Can you guys add to that, Philippa, Faye?
No, I think you're right. I mean, and also podcasts to add to that. I think there's, certainly recently there's a lot of podcasts in the events industry of, various people kind of going, what is going to happen? Where are we? I mean, literally turning to the government going, when are we going to start again? Because we need answers. We were talking about it earlier, we're definitely at the bottom of that hospitality list, and there's a big uproar about the hospitality industry, but we're literally, it's thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in the industry, and we're definitely struggling. So we need to get back up and running.
I think when I ran a team, the things that I would always say to them to gain inspiration, and I can just about start doing this now, is go and look in shop windows. I think that it's really fascinating how people have designed their shop fronts and the little styles you get from that. And exhibitions. So if you were in London or any of the big cities and the big museums there, if there's a specific exhibition, like say at the V&A, they put on a David Bowie exhibition or Alexander McQueen exhibition, and the design of that and the kind of technology they use behind those are really fascinating to gain inspiration from. Also, there's BizBash, which is a pretty good source of information for the event industry. Event magazine or campaign magazine, which I think you can look at online, or definitely look at Instagram. And also looking, I would say, back at old fashion shows as well. For some of the main couture houses, they've always got incredibly beautiful set designs that you can look at and gain inspiration from. I don't know, Faye, have you got any other?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I love going to exhibitions, but I mean, I think I found when we're, you know, during all this time, there's so many people are doing live things, Instagram live. A lot of event companies are, you know, there's florists that are doing live, sort of showing how you do, you know, how you do stuff. There's theatres that are doing shows online, and actually, it's just a really good time at the moment to be able to contact people. So if you go online and there's a company that you think are amazing, you know, they've got some time to talk to you. So I think you could just kind of use that. But yeah, sort of getting out and about and seeing stuff. And I totally agree with the shop windows. That is a good one. You do get a lot of inspiration doing that.
We're just about coming up to an hour. I can see one more question, which I think any of us can answer quite quickly, but we have to choose subjects at GCSE and A-level. Which general subjects do you value most in the event, or does it not matter? It doesn't matter. Go with what you enjoy. And, you know, and if you do well at that and you're passionate about something, then that'll show through. It really doesn't matter. I wouldn't say anybody. Does anyone agree with me?
No, I absolutely agree.
I agree.
And I think a varied skill is the most important thing. Being able to adapt or turn your hand to anything is really, really key in our industry. Really key. And I think that's what's important.
Yeah.
Events use lots of skills, don't they? As we said, financial design, reading, writing, so business management. So really, yeah, do what you enjoy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we have to wrap up, but we can all give it, you know, a last final thought. Would be nice, I think, for everybody. I think my final thought would be that to be in an event industry, you've got to be a self-starter and a team player. So even though it's really hard at the moment, you know, if you've got confidence and you find an opening somewhere, wherever it is, just go for it, and you know, your own personality will shine through. So, you know, good luck on that, everybody. Can anyone else give a bit of advice?
I agree with that. I also think big, be creative, and be proactive. It's a very varied industry. It's very challenging, but no day is the same. And so, yeah, that's my two cents.
What about you, Faye?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, the event industry, we're like a family, you know, so you'll always, I mean, we'll all work together in some way. So I think, you know, enjoy that kind of team, and it gives you a real sense of achievement. So yeah.
And Philippa, the last point.
I think for me, I think all you can be is be your true self, and that's what's really important. And if it's an industry you really want to go into, then be hungry, because that's what's noticed with people. And I think team player is the other one that's really important. So yeah.
So thank you everybody for joining us today, and thank you so much to Philippa and Faye and Lee for being part of this. And we really hope that it's very useful to all the Aldridge schools or whoever sees this, and we've given you all an insight into the industry. So good luck everybody, and
yes, best of luck.
Good luck everyone.
Good luck.
Bye. Thank you.